As a first step, we need to insert spinners because we wanted to increment our units started and partially completed from 10,000 from 0 to 250,000 in increments of 10,000 units. If you don't have the developer in your toolbar, recall you needed to go to the Office button, Excel Options, and then Show the Developer in the Ribbon tab. Alright, if we've got our developer, we're going to insert our spinner. Developer, and Insert, and there's our spinner. We'll click where we want it, and we can resize it and move it. Now in this case, we can then right-click on it, Format Control, and notice the maximum we can set the increments to is 30,000, and we wanted to go up to 250,000. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to set this to 25,000, and we are going to increment by 1,000, and we are going to link it rather than to cell B10 where our units are. We'll link it to cell B11. Now we can then go to cell B10 and set that equal to cell B11 multiplied by 10. And we have now got a spinner that will increment in units of 10,000. You'll do a similar thing for our increments for our percentage of completion, but rather than multiplying, we'll end up dividing. So again, we'll go with Insert, Spinner, and again we can reduce it in size, drag it over to the cell we want it on, right click, Format Control, our minimum value will be 0, our maximum value will be 100, and we'll do it in increments of 10, and we will link it to cell C11. Then for cell C10, we'll just simply equals C11 divided by 10, and that should give us our ability to increment. Oops, I'm going to need to divide by, rather than 10, divide by 100. Now I can increment in units of 10%. I'll copy this and I'll paste it to each of the other cells, and we'll have to go in on each of those. Format Control, instead of C11 I want D11. Instead of C11 I want E11. And then I should be able to also copy this, or at least equals D11 divided by 100 equals E11 divided by 100. And now I've got separate format controls. And again, we initially wanted to start them at 50, so that's where we'll have them at 50, and our units of completion was 0. Alright, moving on down, let's pick up our units. Units in beginning work in process, that's simply our 250, and we can copy that all the way down. We will add those or sum those up, and we can put in some formatting. For direct materials, our equivalent units of production will be equal to our beginning work in process, and again under the FIFO method those are going to be fully 100% complete this period. Units started and completed, we'll just link to our 140. Ending work in process, that's where we need to link it to our 0 times the percentage of completion. And for direct labor, we're going to be the exact same thing. We've got all 250, we've got 140, and then stage of completion will be equal to the 0 times, for direct labor, 50%. Overhead, again, anything we started in the beginning work in process goes through, started and completed, and then we have our ending units times the percentage of completion. And for total equivalent units, once again, we can just sum those up and copy them straight across. We were given our beginning cost for direct materials, direct labor, and overhead, but our cost incurred during the period, we're going to need to calculate that. That's going to be based on our equivalent units of production, our 390, times, we were told our cost per equivalent unit for direct materials is 30 cents. For direct labor, our equivalent units, 390, times our 35 cents. For overhead, our equivalent units times our 15 cents plus the fixed component of $100,000. And so our total will be $412,000. Again, typically we're given this number, but in this case, since we want to change the units we produce, we have to be able to change the cost that we incurred. And let's go ahead and sum those up and copy it across. Now when we calculate our cost per equivalent unit, our total cost we accounted for is the cost we just calculated above. Our equivalent units was our 390, and not surprisingly, when we take our cost divided by our 390, we'll get something close to our 30 cents. Not necessarily exactly the 30 cents per equivalent unit, because recall we've got a cost in beginning work in process, and those weren't necessarily at 30 cents a piece. So once we've done that, we can copy that all the way across, and we'll have to sum to get our total cost per equivalent unit. And again, I don't think that number means much of anything. All right, cost assigned to units transferred out. We're going to take our cost per equivalent unit and multiply it by the number of units that were transferred out. So we'll take our 32 cents per equivalent unit, multiply it by the units from beginning work in process that were transferred out, plus the units that were started and completed. Cost assigned to ending work in process inventory will be our 32 cents for direct materials multiplied by the equivalent units in ending work in process. Our total cost to account for, 125, agrees with the above, and then we can simply take that whole thing and copy it on over. Notice cost assigned to ending work in process inventory is 0 because we have 0 units in ending work in process. If we were to increase the units in ending work in process with our scroll button and come down, we can see our cost to account for reflects costs that are being assigned to ending work in process inventory. Also, observe what happens to our cost per equivalent unit. Right now we're at $1.11 as a total cost per equivalent unit, but as I continue to increase the number of units that we have produced, we spread our fixed cost out over more units, and our cost per unit goes down. Go ahead and copy this worksheet over to the FIFO tab and make modifications to handle the FIFO basis.